going on, Jerome's? Made it to a beautiful, wonderful Friday. So my daughter Margaret discovered the Rebecca Black song Friday from like 15 years ago. It's Friday, Friday. So she plays it every single Friday. So on a Thursday, a couple months ago, she played the song Friday in the morning to try and trick me into thinking that it was Friday. It's good times, man. But it is a beautiful. It is Friday today, right? Nailed it. He sees you when you're pooping. It's time for a Vikings news dump. So it's weird that all of our hopes and dreams are on some 21-year-old kid who grew up in suburban Chicago and went to Michigan. Great. Right. But JJ to Jets, that other thing's going on, and dapping it up. Vikes fan page. Coaches Kevin O'Connell and Josh McCown's first moments with J.J. McCarthy officially as a Viking. So the hugs, the tears, everything's legit. Also, McCown is just saying there's like, hey, I coach Drake May, right? Hey, Sam Darnold and I, when we were with the Jets, instead of, working on Jet stuff, we would break down Drake May's high school sophomore tape. I mean, I know the draft stories are draft stories, but that's a little weird, isn't it? I don't know. Maybe Josh McCown is just a football guy, but either way, this triumvirate, this triangle, is going to be a major part of the Vikings' future going forward. Kevin O'Connell, Josh McCown. I mean, I think Josh McCown's probably going to be OC next year. Maybe part this year. Who knows, man? And also, of course, J.J. McCarthy's going to have something to do with it as Sylvie walks by. Do not put your butt in my face. Speaking of butt and face, I don't know. So the Athletic, Mike Sando does this after every draft. So executives, anonymous executives, unfiltered on NFL draft. What were the Falcons thinking? Thoughts on 16 NFC teams, blah, 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 blah. But long story longer, this is what they thought about the Vikings and J.J. McCarthy. The Vikings landed J.J. McCarthy after She's trying to unhook my cables. After climbing one spot, but the draft capital they burned elsewhere was so massive that some execs questioned Minnesota's process. I could buy trading some future picks if you're going to be contending and you are going to get a potential starter, one exec said. But the Vikings are not even close to contending. Oh, rare. What they did, even when what the Bears did, giving up a fourth and a fifth this year, I would not be doing it if I were those teams. Well, it's a good thing you're not those teams. You're probably an executive of a very poop-at team. You're probably Trent Baalke. The Vikings traded 2025 third and fourth round picks to Jacksonville to jump from 23 to 17 for edge rusher Dallas Turner. That was on top of a 2025 second rounder sent to Houston before the draft for 23 as a chip for possibly climbing for a quarterback, which wound up being unnecessary. Now the Vikings hold only 3 picks in 2025, plus a likely third round compensatory choice for losing Cousins. So what it comes down to, I mean, the Vikings, the whole thing about it is like, hey, who cares? Like, the mortgage of the future. Baloney. Hey, they mortgage the future, but they got the quarterback of the future, who they wanted, and also they got a true edge rushing savant in Dallas Turner. All right, so you got 2 potentially great players, both 21, at the 2 most important positions in football, passer and get the passer. I don't see the issue. I really don't. And so the national media will talk out of both sides of the mouth. First they'll say is like, oh, the hit rate on day 2 and day 3 picks is low. And then they'll be like, oh, the Vikings mortgage the future because they gave up a 2, 3, 4. Again, we're not talking about multiple years of picks. We're not talking about first round picks. Second round pick, yeah, it is valuable, but 3s and 4s, really? Those are the bricks that they're just trying to throw at Kwesi. Get out of here. But speaking of draft picks. So in the 7th round, the Vikings pick up Levi Drake Rodriguez, senior sack, the pride of Texas A&M Commerce. I like him a lot. Man, like the more that I scratch this kid's lotto ticket, the more I'm thinking it's like, hey, the Vikings may have legitimately found themselves an absolute stud, man. But Field Yates 2024 NFL Draft best picks, top steals in every round. For the Vikings in the 7th round, LDR, Levi Drake Rodriguez. One of the draft's hidden gems, Rodriguez finished his college career at Texas A&M Commerce and just destroyed opposing interior offensive lines during his time there. He has great burst and caught the eyes of scouts this past season, and Minnesota landed a potential sleeper here. He had 5.5 sacks, 7.5 tackles for loss in 2023. Also, he showed up out at the Tropical Bowl, one of the postseason All-Star games too. And like I said, he's going to be an easy guy to root for. Like I can't wait until this guy gets in front of the media jackals and they do some profiles on him. Like can't wait to see him at rookie camp and OTAs, training camp, and preseason. I think that the Vikings legitimately may have found a stud. And now I hear what you're saying. I was like, well, what if he just turns out to be another Jalen Twyman or Hercules Mataafa? Sure, but what if he turns into the next John Randall? You never know. Also, something that you don't know. So, put down a jelly bean or two on who will win Defensive Rookie of the Year. Now, generally, it goes to whichever rookie gets the most sacks or gets a bunch of picks. That's what happens, man. But right now, the favorites are Dallas Turner, Leatu Latu, Quinion Mitchell, Jared Verse, Byron Murphy, and others. So, I wouldn't be mad about putting a little something on Dallas Turner because we had the odds up the other day, and I think it was Turner plus 700 or something like that. So 7-1 on Dallas Turner. Ain't bad, man. Ain't bad. Now, thing about it is too, is like, yeah, Latu and Verse are going to put up stats and get numbers, but Turner, I mean, he might be a 3-down player. Flores is going to get super creative with him, but he is definitely going to be put in spots where he can rack up and stack up sacks. And also with the defense, with offenses having to contend on the Vikings defense with Jonathan Grenard, AVG, I mean, it could be a spot where Turner gets some advantageous spots to rack up and stack up some sacks. And context really doesn't matter as long as you put up the numbers. So I think that he could be a very strong candidate for Defensive Rookie of the Year. Stick with PFF. So they did up their 2024 NFL Draft favorite picks for all 32 teams. Our guy Trevor Sikkema for the Vikings, JJ McCarthy at number 10 overall. I don't know why Cooper Beebe's up. Oh, he was the header. I would also go with the Kyrie Jackson selection here, but I have to give the shout out to the McCarthy pick because the Vikings were able to get the quarterback who I think is a perfect fit for them at 10 without having to trade up to number 4 or 5, like many mock drafts predicted. And you do have to respect what Kwesi did, is that he didn't panic. Like when quarterbacks went 1, 2, 3, didn't panic. And same thing with May when he went 3. Didn't panic at all. Didn't trade the farm for 4 or 5 or whatever. And even with the curveball of Penix to the Falcons at 8, I think a lot of people thought that they were going to go defense. Maybe even Dallas Turner. He didn't sweat. Yeah, you trade up one spot. It's fine. Didn't have to trade up to 9, which the Bears probably would have gouged Kwesi's eyes out because they were honed in on Rome Odunze. They didn't want to get jumped for him. So I think it's beautiful. I think it is really good. And frankly, at the end of the day, I know that the Vikings are tied to the Patriots at 3. Are we 100% that it was Drake May? Of course, we'll never know the answer, but could Drake May have just been the ultimate smokescreen? Where it's like, hey, Josh McCown coached him in high school. You know. When again, what Kevin O'Connell stressed over and over and over again was accuracy over of the middle of the field. That's not really Drake May's game. I mean, again, the analogy of Drake May will miss layups, but he'll hit some game-winning half-court shots. I mean, it's beautiful. But I mean, JJ McCarthy is like Steve Wojciechowski, or like the other annoying Duke guards, where they'd slap the floor on defense. So they play tight-ass defense. They're good at passing the ball, and they can hit a 15-foot jumper. That's what JJ McCarthy is. And you can win national titles with that. We'll take that, man. So, yeah, they love J.J. McCarthy in that spot. Something that the Vikings may not love, Dalton Ryner, Proper Persuasion put this together. It's difficult to see a path towards his return, writes Alec Lewis on the Vikings 2023 starting left guard Dalton Ryner. Ryner changes representation this offseason. Drew Rosenhaus, who has multiple clients on the Vikings rooster, is Ryner's stint in Minnesota already over. And it's really weird with Ryner, right, where he came out on social media saying that I'm not looking to break the bank. I'm just looking for a starting guard salary, which fine. But this is the second year in a row where he played solid. And he's a 4-year starter left guard for the Broncos, was okay and decent for the Vikings last season. And second offseason in a row, not signed during free agency, not signed before or after the draft, isn't on a 90-man roster heading into OTAs. It's odd. And, of course, last year, I mean, he wasn't even on a roster in training camp, and he signed with the Vikings week 3. So, something's weird. Like, when something's off, something's off. Like, I don't understand it. Like, to me, Reisner is perfectly fine. Would I sign him and bring him back and just hand him the starting job? No. And especially after they paid Blake Brandel, and they obviously have a lot of faith in him. So, I don't know. Like, is he going to sign somewhere like maybe the Dolphins? Who knows? But like I said, it's something to watch because at a certain point, it's not just the teams. Maybe it's something with Reisner, and it's something that you can't really put your finger on it because you don't know. Because he seems like a solid player, solid teammate. You know, the sideline blow up with Brett Rippon, that's just football guys being football guys. So, I don't know, man. I don't know. Something I do know is that Dirty Kirby Joseph is dirty, right? So, shots on Hockenson's knee, shots on Tyler Higbee's knee, that whole thing. But luckily for the Vikings, reportedly, Hockenson is looking good. Vikings fan page. Vikings tight end TJ Hockenson is ahead of schedule in his rehab recovery from his torn ACL per Alec Lewis at The Athletic. Minnesota does not want to rush him back and will wait until he's fully healthy before he plays, but a good sign to see Hockenson is improving. And so the Vikings under Kevin O'Connell have been very cautious about bringing guys back from serious injury, and there is a checklist and protocols, and I respect it. And you saw it when Brian O'Neill's come back from the Achilles. You saw it when JJ's come back from the hamstring. It's good. It's smart. And Hockenson, you know, with the ACL happening so late in the season, you know, you could see him being a pup candidate for the preseason and regular season, but we'll see what happens. But either way, I like knowing that adults are in charge, and Hockenson won't be back before he's 100% ready to go. And also, I mean, this could be a good opportunity for Johnny Munt. And you laugh, but Johnny Munt took over the receiving tight end duties at the end of last season, just said duty. You know, Josh Oliver is more of the tight end 2 blocking tight end, so I don't really see him progressing into that role. So, I mean, it could be Johnny Munt season, baby. That's right. Lastly, so interesting spot. So when the Vikings were able to sit back and call the Giants' bluff that they wouldn't take J.J. McCarthy, as Sylvie walks in again, at 6, I mean, part of the credit needs to go to Ed Donashell. So, long story longer, so we tweeted this out. Donashell's defense in the wild card game against the Giants gave up 431 yards and 31 points to Daniel freaking Jones. And then the Giants gave Jones the 4-year, $160 million deal, big-time guarantees, big-time dead cap hit in 2024, so they can't part ways with him. And then the Giants' stupid contract, maybe that played a part in them not drafting J.J. McCarthy because they have so many other needs. Malik Nabers at 6 was the BPA. So instead of just hitting the reset at quarterback, they're just like, okay, we'll just ride it out one more year with Danny Dimes. We'll get him a wide receiver 1, and we'll see if he can actually do something, even though Nabers clearly is not excited to play with Daniel Jones. All right. So, in a weird way, we need to thank Ed Donashell for J.J. McCarthy. Again, it sort of goes back to if Taylor Heineke didn't put his foot through a glass door, the Vikings end up with Mahomes theory. I don't know, but it is butterfly effect. And, hell, who knows? Like, I respect Kevin O'Connell for making that change at defense coordinator. Maybe he could have done in season. Who knows? But also, I mean, Donatell being so bad led us to Brian Flores, which, speaking of hugs, I don't think Brian Flores would be into hugs. But it's okay, man. It's all good. Someone who is into hugs is Kevin O'Connell and J.J. McCarthy. Love to see that. But it's a beautiful Friday. Enjoy your weekend. You guys are the best. You know what to do. Skull production value.